Hi, I'm Bear Clifton. Back in the mid-90s, as the internet and cable TV was ramping up, I took a deep dive into the pornography swamp. And when I tried to get out, I found I was trapped in quicksand. It took an 18-month dedicated journey before I came to a place where it felt like I could breathe in the air of freedom again. I'm not proud of that failure. As an aspiring young pastor, it certainly didn't make me into a better leader or a stronger man. Don't ever fall for that lie that you have to sample sin in order to learn right from wrong. You don't have to become bankrupt to learn how to manage money, and you don't have to kill somebody to learn about murder, and you don't need to dive headfirst into pornography to find out if it's going to scar you or weaken you. Trust me, it will. Tragically, though, today, many, if not most people who have grown up with digital technology are finding that as they enter their 20s and their 30s, that their minds are seared with pornographic images. I'm talking about in the church. It's a moral epidemic. Porn is devastating to people's souls and relationships and their view of their sexuality. Don't kid yourself. Porn cannibalizes the heart, and it destroys our ability to give and receive love. As I've done a lot of teaching on this over the years, I, of course, have been asked many times, how did you get out of that swamp? It came down to three things in the end. Daily time with God in His Word, during which time He would speak to me often about my sexuality, this incredible gift that He had given to me. I also invited my wife to share in the journey with me. I opened up my heart to her as I struggled toward wholeness, and ironically, it helped her in her own struggle toward holiness. And thirdly, I sought and submitted to good and godly counsel from those who were trained and compassionate to offer it. I've long wanted to get this journey down on paper, and this winter I completed what ended up becoming a 40-day devotional book, which I've called Train Yourself to Be Godly, a 40-day journey toward sexual wholeness. It's based on 1 Timothy 4:7. And I know what you're thinking, great, another 40-day book. What are we up to now? 40 days of barbecue? But you know, God seems to have something for bringing His people on 40-day adventures. It seems to be the right amount of time for learning new habits and new attitudes. And during the 40 days of Lent, between Ash Wednesday and Easter, each day on my website, blclifton.com, I'm going to put up a reading from this book, which will help point the way toward sexual freedom. I know there's a lot of good books and programs out there right now that teach about porn-free living. And I'm not going to tell you that my approach is better than theirs or try and compete with them. This is just one person's story, of one person's journey, of one person's findings, who took hold of Jesus' hands and said, Lord, save me. And if along the way I can help one or two others with what I share, then that would be a good thing. So during Lent, I want to invite you to do what Jesus said we ought to do, to seek first the kingdom of God. And if for you porn or some other addiction or some other impurity is running loose in your heart, then I want to invite you, I want to challenge you that by the grace of God, you will say to yourself, with God's help, this is going to stop. Jesus took nails in His hands and feet to bring me forgiveness and to lead me to freedom. The Spirit of God is in my heart. I can do better than this. I want you to do three things if you walk with me on this journey. First of all, I want you to read. Each day, as I said, I'll put up a reading, so have a glance at it. And they'll be shared in a regular fashion, so read them one after another. There's a certain strategy to the way the book is laid out. Secondly, reflect. At the end of each reading will be several questions which I want you to think about and answer. And thirdly, and most importantly, respond. And there's several ways you can do this. At the end of each reading, I'll give you a suggested worship song that you could pull up on YouTube and have a listen to. Don't discount this. There's great power in sacred song to break spiritual chains. A second thing that you can do is to memorize a few suggested verses that I'll give for each week's worth of readings. This also is not for extra credit. Psalm 119 says, I have laid up your word in my heart that I might not sin against you. When Satan came against Jesus, how did Jesus resist him? He quoted scriptures that he had memorized, raised them up like a sword. The third thing I'd like you to do is don't do this on your own, but get alongside of a trusted friend or two and share the journey with them. Open up your heart to them. Share your struggles. Pray for each other. Talk with each other. If you see someone that you think might benefit from this journey, Point them in the direction of these materials or invite them to be part of your group. And fourth, I want to ask you that for these 40 days, in fact, I want to charge you for these 40 days, that you lay down this porn habit. You know, you go 40 days without water, you'll die. You go 40 days without food, you'll probably die. You go 40 days without porn, you won't die. Your heart will keep beating, your lungs will keep breathing, it'll just feel like you're dying. That's because your brain has become what St. Augustine said, a wasteland. There's a very real sense in which your body and brain must detox from this poison that you've let inside your heart. The problem is, up till now, you've been too lazy or too afraid, too big a coward to actually face that agitation. Desire comes calling, and what do? You just roll over like one of those goats. Well, it's time, by the grace of God, to dig in your heels and say no to this. To say to God, Lord, I'm better than this, and you made me for better things than this. And so I invite you to grow up and become that man or woman of God, the one that Jesus died on the cross to bring to birth.